What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the off-season edition of the NFL Weekly. That's right, we're getting back into the mud that is the National Football League. And of course, when I say we, I mean myself and my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing very well. We just barely put the basketballs back in the closet, and we're getting the horseshoes ready to go. And in between time, let's fill some time with a little NFL talk.
Amen. Yeah, we are going to be getting into the Derby prep and stuff like that, but did just kind of look at this week as an opportunity to just kind of reset what's going on or what has been going on in the offseason, the free agency, all of that stuff. And then, of course, as we are recording, um, just 8 days before the NFL draft, obviously, a day that's hopefully some teams will be able to look back on and say that is where it started. But we will get to that momentarily. But we are going to dive into the free agency side of things. Obviously, I believe it was like March 3rd is when the or March 10th is when the free agency kind of opens up. A little bit of gray area in terms of the non-tampering versus tampering window, but it does seem like everyone. I haven't seen too much. There was some talk about Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins apparently being at the same ski resort, but hey, we can call that coincidence. But anyways, it's been a very interesting start to the offseason. Obviously, the free agency frenzy has somewhat cooled, but just wanted to go through some of these. We are going to start first, just going through kind of our teams. Obviously, Raider Jim, going to be the Vegas Raiders, and myself, the Philadelphia Eagles, but just kind of giving a little rundown of where our teams are sitting just 8 days away from the draft, but at least in terms of the free agency side of things. Raider Jim, I'm going to give you a first bite at the apple. How are things going out there in Vegas when it comes to the free agency side of things?
Well, I will tell you, several weeks ago before the NFL season ended, and we were talking about, what's going to happen with the Raiders and, who's going to take the place of Antonio Pierce. And I threw out a couple names, and then I said, now, I don't even know what this guy's interest is. I don't know if he even wants to get off the sofa and play football anymore, or coach football anymore. But if you can give me Pete Carroll, I'll go for it. And sure enough, as everybody knows, Pete Carroll is now holding the reins of the Raiders. And already I sense a difference, not just from the front office positions and what's going on. I think the combination of Pete Carroll and Tom Brady, that definitely has winning combination all over it. They got a couple rings. They've won some significant games in their respective careers and histories. And what did he do? He went out, kind of settled the quarterback situation with the Raiders. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be AOC? Is it going to be this guy? Is it going to be uh oh my gosh, and now his name escapes me. The Gardner, that's it, Gardner Minshew, Gardner.
Mania.
Or what are we going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to bring in Geno Smith. And that's not a bad thing because Geno Smith has already been quoted, on all kinds of papers and periodicals, websites. He said, hey, I'll do anything for that guy. I'll run through a wall for that guy because he believed in me when nobody else did. So that right there does something to the mindset of the Raiders. What else have they done? They picked up a safety from Washington, Jeremy Chinn. Oh, I like Jeremy Chinn a lot. And the Raider defense is just terrible. Has been terrible for many, many, many years. And so I like that. Jeremy Chinn, let me tell you what this kid brings to the table. 408 snaps as the safety, 193 snaps in the slot, 287 snaps at the outside linebacker position, and even did 40 snaps on the inside linebacker position. Divine Diablo was good. Spillane was good, and you hated to see him go. But I'll tell you what, they just filled in some gaps right there. They picked up Raheem Mostert at running back, and they need big help in the running game. But let me tell you, he's not the answer. He's not going to be the answer. He's good. He's solid. But with the offensive line, they got to put some attention on that too, They did pick up Alex Kappa. Alex Kappa is a good pickup, or good, continuing on with building the offensive line. You're doing better there for pass protection and opening holes for a running back. I know we're going to talk about draft and who are they going to draft, and the name Ashton Jeanty keeps being out there. That's who they're going to get? That's who they're going to get. Well, I'll give you my opinion on that in a little bit. But overall, I think the Raiders and the free agency things, other names, Eric Stokes, Adam Butler, they were out there as well that they picked up. And I just like the direction they're going. If they can solidify the defense a little bit and get a healthy offensive line, I think good things can happen in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I do believe that they're definitely moving in the right direction. I guess my question is, will Pete be there or be on the sideline when it does fully come to fruition? Because I want to say he's 73, or I know he's in his
I
70s.
think he's older than that.
Yeah, so that would be kind of the other part of it, because as you kind of alluded to, there is a lot to build on. And I really do like the Geno Smith signing. Obviously, the familiarity. If anybody's got the most out of Geno Smith, I think it has to be Pete Carroll. Geno Smith was an afterthought before he went to Seattle, and I mean, 2 years ago had maybe. I mean, I don't know if he won Comeback Player of the Year, but definitely should have an incredible run back. And obviously, you mentioned Brady being there. I do like the Jeremy Chinn. I've liked Jeremy Chinn for a very, very long time. And mainly just I'm happy not only for y'all, but also to get him out of that division.
Get him
But
out of the
yeah, yeah. Now once every 4 years, great. Of course, we are playing the Raiders this year, so we are still gonna he is still gonna be in our stratosphere. But even the Mostert deal, I agree with you. I do think it's a lot of these, maybe not so much Chin, but a lot of these, I think, can be considered stopgaps. I don't think in 5 years Geno Smith's going to be the starting quarterback. And then yeah, and Raheem Mostert, maybe a year or two. I think if he is getting the bulk of the carries, the Raiders are probably not in a great position. But a lot of the mock drafts I've looked at, and of course we will get to that, is the player you just mentioned. And I think there are a lot of teams that are looking at Jeanty as the main guy, kind of in this free agency, or excuse me, in the draft on the running back side. But Mostert, I think, if for whatever reason the Raiders don't get him, I think there are other ones. I really wanted, I thought Najee Harris going to Oakland, or excuse me, going to Vegas would be really, really good. Now he ends up going to the Chargers, but that's kind of the only real difference maker on the running back side. And even then, you might have to really be drinking some Najee Harris Kool-Aid to believe
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because now transitioning to the Eagles, Raider Jim just kind of gave a whole rundown of guys that were brought in. Unfortunately, on the Eagles side of things, they did bring some guys in, but I'll be completely honest with you. I'd have to Google them because there's a lot of very small deals in there. But one very, very key signing was Zach Baun. Zach Baun is back with the Eagles, and he got a great deal. I think everyone's happy. The Eagles also re-signed or extended or kind of I'm not sure how they did it with Saquon, but they essentially paid him because they looked and they said we should not. It's not great for Saquon Barkley to be. I think he would be the 34th highest paid wide receiver if he went on his, I think, $12 million a year contract. Eagles didn't have to do that, but again, I think that shows the organization showing to everyone that, hey, if you come here and you perform, we're willing to pay. And Zach Baun was one of those guys this time last year. I would have had to Google. I was not familiar with Zach Baun's game, and now I very much am. So obviously, losing Josh Sweat, losing Milton Williams, losing Mekhi Becton, those are three big time starters that you did lose. Now, the good part of it is, at least on the defensive side of things, obviously, the kind of resurgence, or let's say the arrival of Nolan Smith off of the edge for the Eagles, I think will be able to fill in Josh Sweat. Very big shoes to fill, but I do think Nolan Smith will be able to step in. And then on the deep tackle side, I just think this is going to be a bigger opportunity now for Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, however they want to configure that defensive line. It's not ideal, but every single Super Bowl team, for the most part, has to deal with losing coordinators and then losing players because Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, and Mekhi Becton, or at least the first two, we drafted those guys. So they were making essentially peanuts compared to what they are now. Eventually, those guys got to get paid. And there's this thing in the NFL called the salary cap, and
Right.
you got to make some choices. And unfortunately, that is what happened now. The good part, if you are an Eagles fan, and obviously it was 72 hours and of just seeing essentially your best players going elsewhere, or at least some of your best players going elsewhere. But the ace up our sleeve, or kind of that extra wild card that we have, is Howie Roseman, and he is going to rebuild. He is going to find ways to get in. Now, one thing that I did read about that was very interesting, maybe one of the best remaining free agents, and we'll get there as well. The Eagles are, most people are believing that Justin Simmons, excuse me, will be heading to the Eagles. However, if reports are to be believed, that deal will not be made official until after the draft, because if the Eagles do sign Justin Simmons prior to the draft, they lose one of their compensatory picks. Again, kind of the positive of losing those three guys is the Eagles have comp picks out. I mean, I think they have like six picks in the first 80 overall. And if you know anything about Howie, you know what he can do with that. So think they're gonna play it cool with him. Obviously, CJ Gardner Johnson is gone. He's been traded away, and that safety position does probably need to be filled. And it do believe it will be Justin Simmons. But overall, I think if you're an Eagles fan, you still got to feel really good about everything because we are still a very, very good team. And again, we have a whole draft for Howie to do what Howie does. Most people call it the off season. We call it Howie season. And it's just an opportunity for him to go out and, you know, there's not a big surprise when you see TJ Watt put up a cryptic Instagram story of him in a Steelers uniform, giving the peace sign. Everyone's freaking out. And then immediately everyone goes, oh, he's going to get traded to the Eagles. Why? Well, it's just because if that's going to happen, well, Howie's going to be at the front of that line and he's probably got something for him. So we'll see. Now, obviously, that's diving deep into the conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat type stuff. And I'm not ready to pull that out just yet. But we'll switch our attention now to kind of the free agency signings throughout the league. Obviously, we just focused heavily on our teams. But I'll just kind of go through the top 10. This is according to CBS Sports. Obviously, probably the biggest name out there, or at least the biggest quarterback out there, was Sam Darnold. He leaves Minnesota, goes to Seattle. 3 years, $100 million. Good for him. T. Higgins gets the franchise tag for what seems like the eighth year in a row. But hey, can't feel too bad for him. He'll be making $26.2 million this year. Josh Sweat, as I mentioned, leaving the Eagles. He'll be heading to the Redbirds, the Cardinals. 4 years, $76 million. Trey Smith, the guard out of Kansas City, was franchise tagged for $23 million this year. Ronnie Staley, offensive tackle, stays in Baltimore, 3 years, $60 million. Milton Williams, as I mentioned again, Eagles to New England, 4 years, $104 million. Good for him. Get your money, son. Best of luck in the playoffs. I don't know if you'll see it again. But Drew Dahlman, maybe one of the best offensive linemen, or maybe the best center in free agency in a long time. He's heading to Chicago. 3 years, $42 million. DJ Reed, cornerback, he is leaving the Jets. He is heading to much greener pastures in Detroit. 3 years, $48 million. Javon Holland, the safety out of Miami, no longer. He is in New York to play for the Giants on a 3-year, $45 million deal. And of course, finally, excuse me, Zach Baun, 3 years, 51 million. He is staying in Philadelphia. Raider Jim, any thoughts on those or any of the other free agencies that maybe intrigued you or you had any thoughts on?
Yeah, a couple. I guess these are more back page. These definitely aren't the top 10 guys, but it kind of made me scratch my head or go, well, that's kind of interesting move these guys would make. Cooper Cup to Seattle. I mean, in a way it does, but in a way it doesn't because they also have. I mean, they've got Cooper Cup, but if you think that's he's going to walk in and be the caliber he was 3 seasons ago, even if we want to go back that far, and he's going to fill the shoes of DK Metcalf. Oh, that's gonna be kinda disappointing, I think. So, we'll see what happens with Cooper. The Chargers picked up a O-lineman from Philadelphia, Mekhi Becton. Big kid. He can do a lot of I shouldn't say he can do a lot of things. He's a big kid, and he can make things happen. At the same time, he seems to have these lapses, when he's out there on the field, and so interesting. It's not like the Chargers did anything to help their offensive line to get just, a solid anchor. Maybe they can develop him into something more than he was at Philadelphia. He didn't do you would be able to speak better about that as far as the Eagles go, but, interesting to see what'll happen. One that I absolutely hate, Dre Greenlaw from the Niners to the Broncos. Why do I hate that? Because we don't need to see him. We, the Raiders, don't need to look across the line and see that guy staring down at you, getting, revving his engine and getting ready to come at you. He is a dangerous, dangerous linebacker. Congratulations to the Broncos for picking him up. And the caliber of their defense just got a lot better this offseason. Devontae Adams to the Rams till he stomps his feet and decides he's not getting the ball enough, and then he'll want to go play somewhere else. I really thought he might hold out until he saw where Aaron Rodgers went, and then have his agent, hey, call these guys, tell them I'm available. Dante Fowler from Washington to Dallas. I never understand uh, the internal division things when they make the trades like this. It's like, why do you want to keep these guys, in the put them on the competitor there? They're going to come back if they got a chip on their shoulder and they're going to make your life miserable twice a year. Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle, Washington, from the Commanders to Minnesota. Good for Minnesota because they needed a little help on defense last year. The way I read one article is they referred to it as kind of a slow bleed on the defensive line in Minnesota. So we'll see what happens. But I like Jonathan Allen, so we'll see how much he's going to help them. So yeah, that's those were the ones that caught me. And again, more back page, but just kind of like, wow, these things are happening. So many things between the free agency, the draft picks. You and I think it's maddening to read all the prognostications for March Madness. Oh, what's the final field going to be? Who's this going to be? Where's the boy? I'll tell you what, you start reading free agency for the NFL and the drafts, you can drive yourself absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it's paralysis by analysis in certain situations.
Bingo.
A lot of times in the NFL, goodness gracious, I love a 24-hour news cycle, but sometimes it's like, okay, we don't need to know about that. But going back to the Mekhi Becton thing, obviously I don't know if he was a top 5. I know he was a first round pick. I want to say he was a top 10 pick of the Jets. Didn't really work. And a lot of it was on the field, but also to look, the New York sports media, the New York sports landscape, it is not a very forgiving place. And I don't know Mekhi Becton, but I can tell, like, even in the videos of him with his kids in the Super Bowl, which I just absolutely love, but you can tell that is an emotional man. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, sometimes when you are emotional and you're struggling and you get put into an environment that is New York,
Yeah.
that's not a great, um, you know, combo. And the Eagles essentially kind of took a flyer on him, and signed him up. I don't know what the exact number was, but obviously just a 1-year deal. If you ask any Philadelphia Eagle fan that really, knows and you ask any offensive line question about any player that ever played in the last 10 years, every single one will say the same thing: Jeff Stoutland. If there is one positive from the Chip Kelly experience that left as bad of a taste in our mouth as anything ever, he brought in Jeff Stoutland, and Jeff Stoutland, for me, is the best assistant in football. Ask anyone on the know who can turn someone from an average into a great offensive lineman. Jeff Stoutland is at the top of everyone's list. Jordan Mailata is arguably the best tackle in football.
Mhm.
He never played football until he stepped foot into Philadelphia after the draft, the 7th round pick. That's what Jeff Stoutland does. When you watch Sunday Night Football and they do, where did, Brandon First, USC, Jordan Mailata, Jeff Stoutland University. And that's what it's called, because that's what it is. And I don't want to discredit Mekhi Becton and say, oh, the only
Oh,
reason
no.
he was as good as he was because of Jeff Stoutland, but I do think there is some of that there. I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't think he's going to be at the caliber he was with the Eagles for a lot of reasons. Because you do have a really good offensive line outside of Mekhi Becton in Philadelphia, not so much with the Chargers. But I'm rooting for Mekhi Becton. I obviously would have loved to see him in midnight green again, but at the same time, you got to get your money. I have no ill will towards him, and I hope he has a great career with the Chargers. And it is nice he's out of the division. And definitely the conference. We don't have to deal with that. But again, we are playing the AFC West this year, so we will see Big Beck this year. The free agencies, I was very similar to you, kind of the other ones that jumped off of it for me. One of the main ones that made me scratch my head the hardest is Hassan Reddick. Now, if you're scratching your head going, why does that name sound familiar? Well, Hassan Reddick was on the Eagles 2 years ago, or when the Eagles had that late season collapse. They bring in Vic Fangio, and Vic Fangio just kind of says, look, I can't use this guy. So they trade him away to the Jets. And I don't know if he was under the impression that an extension was coming, or the Jets just figured maybe he'll play for an extension, but he didn't play at all last year, holding out. And he's now in Tampa, 1 year, $14 million. Look, Hassan Reddick is, and this might be a great deal for them, because if he's at the top of his game, he is worth more than 14. However, not only do you have a year off, but you also have someone that, look, if he has a good year, is he going to start stomping his feet for a contract extension week 8, 9, or 10? And then what? Again, I don't know if that's the case, because up until this, Hassan Reddick really didn't have that reputation, but he's 30 years old. He's an edge rusher. 14 million seems like a lot on a bit of a gamble there. Um, and the other big one for me, I actually like this one, and I'm very, very intrigued by it. Justin Fields to the Jets. I don't know what happened or is going on. I watched Justin Fields at Ohio State, and I thought for sure this is the next superstar. He had the size, he had the speed, he had the arm talent, he had the accuracy, short to intermediate. And then I know going to Chicago, everyone can say, oh, well, it's just what the Bears do, blah, blah, blah. But he couldn't beat Russell Wilson out in Pittsburgh. And how much of that was Mike Tomlin wanting to go with the established veteran? I don't know. But I'm very interested to see what Justin Fields brings to the table. It's his team now. I don't think he has to really look over his shoulder. He doesn't have to deal with the question marks of, oh, who are they going to draft or this or that? Hopefully the Jets don't draft quarterback. I think they're going to take a chance. 2 years, 40 million, I believe. So 20 a year. Yeah, 2 years, 40 million. Might not be the greatest financial investment, but look, it's very difficult to find a capable starting quarterback for less than that. So I think the Jets might have hit a home run there. But again, very, very intrigued to see how Justin Fields does. But looking ahead to kind of the best of the rest, Raider Jim kind of threw it out there. Obviously, more than likely, everyone is just waiting to figure out where Mr. Rodgers is going to sign. And if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, we have a bit of a tradition here when we talk about the draft. Not only do we prognosticate who's going where or this or that, we also kind of try and figure out how is Aaron Rodgers going to hijack the news on draft day. It seems like the last 3 years we've had some big major story break about Aaron Rodgers the day of the draft. And obviously, I do believe that Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to get Kirk Cousins, which unfortunately has turned into a verb now of signing a big contract and then the team just drafted a quarterback in the first round out from underneath you. Um, so it'll be very interesting to see where Aaron Rodgers goes, but there are plenty of others. Just kind of going through some of these that USA Today had listed. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, obviously two wide receivers. I mentioned Aaron Rodgers, Cam Robinson, offensive tackle, and Keenan Allen, still out there. Russell Wilson, also still a free agent, along with J.K. Dobbins. Justin Simmons, who I kind of mentioned earlier. Julian Blackman, a safety, and Tevin Jenkins, a guard. Raider Jim, your thoughts on kind of the rest of the free agents that are kind of be waiting to get snatched up after the draft?
Yeah, my list is about 10 days old, so I hopefully none of these people have had things happen I'm not aware of it. Nick Chubb is still out there.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, Nick Chubb wearing silver and black, I'm not hating that. That would be fabulous. Cam Akers is still out there. Hey, get the journeyman out there. Let these guys have a chance. It's you never know what they can do for you. The wide receivers I saw, yeah, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. Amari is the ripe old age of 31, and I don't know how that hurts his stock if it does at all. He's come back from his injuries. I think he still has the route running ability, and he definitely has the hands. So if you want to if you want to strengthen up your receiving, would the Raiders go after him? I don't think so. And quite honestly, going back, I left it off the Raider report when I was doing it. If they're going to do anything to give Geno Smith a good target, I would, if the rumors are true, I would give a serious look at bringing back Hunter Renfrow. I think he is one of the most reliable guys. Maybe he's not the fastest, but that guy can catch anything within a 48-inch radius, and he's going to get yards for you after the catch, definitely. What was the other one I saw up here? Oh yeah, I wonder what do you think is going to happen here with Carson Wentz? I mean, he's going to be somebody's backup, but
I would love I'd love for us to just somehow grab I don't know. I know we kind of joke about Carson Wentz and he's kind of a running joke, but if you're an Eagle fan and you don't have a soft spot for Carson Wentz, like we all love Nick Foles and that Super Bowl was fantastic, but we're not in that position without Carson Wentz. It might be one of the bigger what if stories in sports. I hope he goes somewhere where he gets a chance to compete. Again, I don't know, when you go to Kansas City, great, get your paycheck, but I don't care how good you are. You're not unseating Patrick. And I don't know. I, I don't, I don't fully I haven't fully given up on Carson Wentz. I don't know. I think there's something there. I think he's got something left. He's just got to have that right opportunity. But it's kind of ironic you brought up Hunter Renfrow, and I don't know if this was just like a weird like April Fool's joke, but I saw a video. He's like he's fully out of football. He was working
recycling or
yeah,
something, wasn't it?
yeah, and obviously I haven't heard Hunter Renfrow's name in a little while, and even when the last time he was in Vegas, it was kind of like not where's Carmen San Diego, it's where's Hunter Renfrow, because he was targeted so much the few years before. But for him to drop all the way to like 9 to 5 job is like, man, there's no UFL or XFL, whatever it's called. There's no even arena league. Like, You don't see that kind of obscure, like, oh, he's playing here. So, I mean, obviously, look, best of luck to him. And if he wants to get back into football, I find it very hard to believe that there aren't teams out there that aren't willing to at least give him a shot at a training camp spot. But who knows? Maybe this is a personal decision from him where he just said, you know what? I made some money and, I'm going to kind of go into anonymity, which I completely understand for a lot of these guys. But that's very interesting there. Also, the article I sent and had linked here. Yeah, I just realized I was going through the list. They had Mekhi Becton on there as the best free agents available. I thought this article was written on the April 13th. It was written March 13th. So I apologize if I gave any of those out there, but I'll be honest. NFL free agency is one of the biggest in one ear, out the other. Because for 48 hours, you're like, oh, this guy goes here, this guy goes here. And then we're going to be sitting here week 1 or week 2, week 3. And before we hit record, we're going to look at each other and be like, man, did you know that Najee Harris is on the Chargers? Not a terrible example because we talked about it in depth. But yeah, there's going to be moments where like, oh, that's right. He's there now. It's such a weird area to dive into, but free agency it's all right away and then nothing, and it's very difficult to kind of mentally hold on to, especially for us when we've been mentally focused on basketball and all that stuff. But
And there's one other name out there, and I don't know. I've got to believe this has to just do with maybe restructuring, fine tuning, uh, some new details of a contract. But if it's not, and if it's a real free agency where it's like, hey, pal, you guys got 24 hours, we're going to put our name out there. And if the Raiders want to really, really bolster that secondary, Asante Samuel Jr. is sitting out there, not signed with the Chargers at this time.
yeah, I believe that's a what's it called? Restricted free agent? I understand restricted free agents in hockey a lot better than I do in the NFL. I believe so, but yeah, that would be a heck of a coup if that could happen. But moving on to kind of the draft side of things. But before we drive into the draft, I saw something today that made me not only pull my soapbox out, or not today, it was 3 or 4 days ago. Not only pull my soapbox out, I put my soapbox right here, and I have been waiting to stand on this. Folks, the University of Colorado, they are going to retire Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's numbers at their spring game. That's right. Now, look, Travis Hunter, unfortunately, he gets kind of lumped into this. He is a Heisman winner. He did some incredible things, but we have two kids that have been off of campus for all of what, 3 months, and their numbers are already retired. Whew. Let's get them soapbox out, Raider Jim. Your thoughts on the Sanders getting what they want?
Okay, let's everybody in the sports world, let's reel it in and pump the brakes. Unless you had a batting average and a strikeout ratio like Tony Gwynn, you're not the GOAT. Unless you have Tom Brady's record and rings, you're not the GOAT. Unless you scored more goals than Wayne Gretzky, you're not the GOAT. So it's overused. There's not GOATs. There's not that many legends. There's not that many of this. And for God's sakes, these two young men do not deserve to have their numbers retired. There had to be better players before them, and there will be better players after them. And this is all another one of those things where they want to make Prime Time happy. Let's
Yep.
make Coach Prime happy so that he can walk around telling everybody, look how great my kid is. Look what I did for these young men. Cause this is all, this is all about him. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I read some stuff. We're going to be talking about the draft here in a minute and who to watch. I have seen, I saw one writer's prognostication. He had Sanders down at like the 27th best player in the draft, not even the top 10. And I think that's realistic. So should they be doing all this and had a spring game? No, that tells you how legitimate it is.
Yeah. I mean, I heard someone say, at what point do we just lift up the veil and just say, this is Deion Sanders University or Primetime University. Because that's what this is. And look, Travis Hunter,
That
fine.
kid's good.
Yeah, we can have that conversation. But the other part of it too is, can we let this breathe? Can these kids get drafted? Like, what are we doing to where we are retiring numbers right away? Now, obviously, look, I am not so dense to be like, oh, I wonder why they're doing this. I get it. They are doing whatever they can to make Deion Sanders happy. However, what what else are you going to sacrifice to keep Deion happy? Because I guarantee you there are certain parents that are gonna go, Deion, I loved watching him, growing up, but maybe I'd send this kid to Georgia or send this kid to Alabama or, somewhere where they're gonna focus on football and not the coach. And then the other question I have is, if I'm Shiloh Sanders, I gotta be looking around like, WTF, pops? Like, what? What, you don't want to get my number retired as well? Again, Cordell Stewart is the first name I thought of because I thought
There you
like,
go.
oh, okay, like because I immediately was like, oh, Cordell Stewart's number is retired. No, it is not. There was a Colorado team that won a national championship. Nobody's jerseys are retired there. These two kids didn't win a bowl game. And again, I hate to lump Travis Hunter into this, but he has to be because I do think in 4 years, 5 years, hey, we're gonna retire Travis Hunter's number. I don't bat an eye. Okay, yeah, great. But 3 months after, and then Shadur, like I personally, I don't think colleges should retire numbers. I don't know. That's just
Bingo.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think you're there long enough to do like you know. Anyways, dude, these days some kids might be there 6, 7 years. What?
Did the Trojans retire Marcus Allen's number?
You know,
I
some
don't think so.
they have the jerseys in like so the Coliseum. Unfortunately, lately they have to. They're it's essentially just the very few end zone seats and all that stuff. So they'll have kind of it tarped off and they have giant jerseys. I don't know if they're considered retired. Mainly because look, and if you have 100 kids on a team, like yeah, you need every single number.
Numbers.
Yeah. So again, like I just don't know about that. But yeah, if Marcus Allen's number is retired, God, if Tim Tebow's number isn't retired, like guys that
Reggie
win.
Bush.
Yeah, and in 4 years, and they were all there. The other part of it too, these two were there for 2 years. They were at Jackson State before that. Again, I understand it, and I even had, explained it to my mom, and my mom was like, "Well, it's not really that big of a deal." And it's like, "Yeah, you're right, it's not, but really sports aren't that big of a deal. No one should be getting more this
Right.
worked up about it."
Right.
But if you're a sports fan, like what else are you going to get worked up about? It's just it looks to me and it makes Colorado look like a unserious program. It just looks like here is Deion Sanders. Oh yeah, we have all that other stuff. It's a beautiful campus, beautiful stadium, Folsom Field. I've never been, but I've been up like hiking in Boulder and kind of like looked down. Beautiful. It's a beautiful area. And yeah, I mean they won 8 games this year. Great, congratulations. But I wonder in 4 years when he goes to, God forbid, USC or a bigger high profile job, I just wonder, do those jerseys stay? Because I don't think they do. And that's a very awkward conversation. If in 5 years when Deion Sanders leaves, they go, actually, never mind, Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders jerseys are not retired. That's just not optically looking great there.
And it has to rub not just alumni, but it has to rub parents of young men who have been there for 4 years,
Yeah.
parents of the players that have been recruited. And you're looking around going, What's this about?" And so my kid's got a chance to get his number retired if he just plays for 2 years.
Yep.
I mean, wow. No, bad look, I think.
not ideal. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there again. I saw that and I just, old man yells at cloud came out and I was like, here we go. But now time to dive into the NFL draft. Obviously, kind of just threw three topics out there. We'll just kind of chew on them. Any of the storylines, any of the players to watch, and then of course, what do you want your team to do next Thursday? Whether it's a position, whether it's a player. Raider Jim, I'm going to give you first crack. Your thoughts on all things NFL draft.
Oh, all the talk about where Sanders gonna go, this and that and the other. The first 2 people to go are gonna be Travis Hunter and Cam Ward.
Yep.
Cam Ward's probably gonna be the number 1 overall pick, if you ask me, and might as well, because if you look at the other 99 guys that are online, they've got 99 different answers too, or at least we're splitting it down the middle. But I think Cam Ward goes number 1, Travis Hunter. Now, here's the thing about drafting a Travis Hunter, and are you drafting him as a wide receiver? Or are you drafting him as a defensive back? I mean, that's kind of tough. And then I even heard, I think it was Chris Collinsworth made the remark, he would definitely take a shot at letting him play cornerback and every now and then filling him in at wide receiver, basically playing both sides of the ball, not full time by any stretch, but he would definitely platoon his skills to use him on both sides of the line, depending on the situations. One knock I heard was he was not always the best of, he wasn't going to throttle guys when he's playing defensive back. Covers very well. He, has the feet, has the skills, has all that stuff, but he wasn't that overly physical defensive back. I didn't see him play enough to tell you that that's the truth or not. Other people I like, Ashton Jeanty. Here we go. There's that name again. 5'8", and I saw this cat with his shirt off the other day, and it scared me. I mean, he is he is built. If he can keep that frame healthy, he might be able to really make a name for himself in the NFL. It's that joke you and I always make though. 5'8" is what they're listing him at. Okay, but when he takes the cleats off, how tall is he? Is he really 5'8" or is he 5'6"? That type of a thing. And the other thing is, quite honestly, and this is not to disrespect anybody's conference, in your opinion, do you think he played NFL caliber competition, racking up all those yards? He didn't play against Ohio State. He didn't play against Alabama. He didn't play against the Georgias. And you're going to go out there after you ran roughshod on the West Coast or Mountain West Conference. Nothing wrong with that. But would he have had the same success if he was suiting up as an Oklahoma Sooner?
Yeah, that's the kind of the $1,000,000 question because I I think Penn State, for the most part, kind of contained him. He still had a nice little day, maybe not yards per carry, but the one thing that for me that turns me into believing that Ashton Jeanty is the real deal is, yeah, he was doing that against the Mountain West, but if you go and you look at the numbers, they're video game numbers. Like they're like
Yeah,
one of those things where
yeah.
it's like, okay, like that's fine, those are still D1 athletes. And yeah, Air Forces and the Wyomings of the world, you're not going to see that type, that low of talent in the NFL. But he's also running for like 250 yards on like 15 carries against those teams. So I do think that will be key. But I think for a lot of these guys, and especially Aston Jeanty, it's what system you're put in, what they want to do, how they want it. Because we saw it a few years ago with Bijan Robinson. Just for whatever reason, Arthur Smith was like, I don't really want to hand the ball off to you. You might catch the ball. And it's like, coach, I'm not really a receiving back. Well, that's what I want to use you as. And it
And
really,
he's not a receiving back.
he is,
He
yeah. And so I am very, very intrigued by Ashton Jeanty. I mean, I'm looking at a mock draft right now. Looks like he's heading out to Vegas. And I think that would be great for y'all. But as long as he doesn't go to an NFC East team, I will be cheering for Aston Jeanty very
agreed.
hard. I want to see the resurgence of the running back and this guy being the one too, because he is a class act. Everything I've heard, all the quotes, you mentioned Travis Hunter and you talked about which side of the ball. I saw a quote, and again, this is a quote, so it wasn't a video and I didn't hear actual audio. So you kind of, I don't know, it could have just been me getting fooled. But he said if he doesn't play on both sides of the ball, he's not going to play football. And if you're Travis Hunter and you honestly believe a NFL team is going to take you with a second, first, third, fourth, top 5 pick, and they are going to put you on both sides of the ball 90% of the time, you're out of your mind. And the
Right.
other part of it too, and he doesn't want to admit this, and that's fine, but he's not, if he was only a wide receiver, we would not know Travis Hunter's name. He is a above average college wide receiver. He is a phenomenal defensive back. I think a big reason why I think Travis Hunter will probably go closer to the safety position is because what you mentioned is the lack of physicality. There are a lot of NFL teams that look at quarterbacks, and if you can't play bump and run, you can't play on this team. They're not always going to play bump and run, but
Right.
you need to be able to play bump and run. And if you're lined up next, across from AJ Brown, from DK Metcalf, if you put your hands on them, you better make sure you got a lot of physicality behind it because they're going to throw you off to the side, make you look ridiculous. I I think Travis Hunter is going to be a very, very good defensive back, but I do generally believe he probably fits more as a safety, and he might be maybe one of the best safeties we've ever seen. But again, I'm glad you brought
But
it up,
going back to the
physicality.
physicality, if
Yeah.
you put him at safety, is he gonna do what Jeremy Chinn does?
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, and it's
You get
unfor
a line there, I'm gonna tell him, "Hey, man, go stand in the middle there. We need you in the center as a linebacker for."
Yes, zero chance. He's running. He's running to Coach T on
Stay.
coach, coach. Yeah. Um, and I really do hope that that quote was not or either was out of context or whatever, because I do like Travis Hunter. And I like Shedeur Sanders too. It's kind of the Bronny James thing. It's like it's not really your fault. It's just all this other minutia around you. Now, Shedeur Sanders has had some quotes that turn me off to him. I look at Bronny James and I just go, man, everything in your life you are set, but unfortunately, when it comes to the basketball side of things, uh, it's unfortunate. But no, I am very intrigued by what Ashton Jeanty can bring to the table at the next level, and Travis Hunter in a different sort of way, maybe a more perverse. Like I'm not rooting for failure on Travis Hunter, but again, I'm not been a big fan of the way this group has handled the last 3 months or even going back to the season. That's just my thoughts, but I don't know, Raider Jim, you have any more thoughts on the draft?
There, and it kind of ties in with your last point on our drafting, which is what do you want your team to do next Thursday? I'll tell you, if there's some way they could move it up, forget about Ashton Jeanty, because I even heard something today where they say that the Bears are actually going to jump the Raiders to get the 5 pick because they're going to try to get Ashton Jeanty. And of course, all this is guesswork and prognostication. But if the Raiders could pull some deal and move up and the player is still there, hide him in the corner and pretend maybe he's not even in the draft. But if they could get Abdul Carter, I would be happy, 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 because that's a guy that's going to come out and make an impact as a rookie.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit before. What team were you worried about jumping in front of the Raiders?
Oh, well, no, what I
Oh,
heard I think it was CBS and maybe on an ESPN thing too, that the Bears may try to trade up and get over the Raiders to get
mm,
to that 5 spot so that they can get Ashton Jeanty.
gotcha. Interesting. That would be very interesting. And I'm glad you brought up Abdul Carter,
Oof.
because I personally, now he does have some injury situation. I believe he's gonna be out to start the season. I don't remember if it was ACL something. It was not ideal. But before that, he was everyone's number one best available player. And I guess for me, and this storyline has kind of faded, but I'm not very big on any of these quarterbacks. I've said it probably on every single podcast we've done in the NFL the last 4 times, 5 times. The one quarterback that I'm at least intrigued by, and I wouldn't waste a top 10 pick on him, but I would go first round is Jaxson Dart. And now I will also preface this by saying I am so bad at prognosticating quarterback talent from the college to the NFL level. Now, I said Joe Burrow was going to be good, but I mean, how much of a limb did you have to go out on that? So, take it with a grain of salt, but everything I've seen from these quarterbacks, Jaxson Dart has at least impressed me the most. And impressed could probably be putting it into air quotes there. But to figure out if we were going to get the first draft since 2017, of not getting a quarterback first overall. And of course, that was Myles Garrett. And obviously, he's got all the Defensive Player of the Year awards to prove that that was the right decision. But it doesn't seem like we are going to be getting a non quarterback going number one overall. As you mentioned, Cam Ward, more than likely going number one overall. But to figure out kind of where the other teams that need quarterbacks, what they do. Because again, I don't think this is and especially considering what's coming next year, if you want to jump on the Arch Manning hype train, the Carson Beck hype train, there's a lot of really really good quarterbacks that are going to be in next year's draft. So it is a big question. You kind of mentioned some of those teams, even the Raiders. Look, Geno Smith, very good quarterback, but you'd wonder, and God forbid for Raider Jim's sake, that Shedeur Sanders is still there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it would happen. I don't think Pete Carroll would want to deal with that. And I don't really think Tom Brady would want to
I
deal
don't
with
think Brady would want to.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And so, I'm just maybe throwing a little fire onto Raider Jim's panic over there. But yeah, I am very, very intrigued to see how the draft lines up when we don't have such a quarterback heavy draft. I mean, last year was what it was like 5, 6 quarterbacks in the first 11 picks. It was like, okay, like these all aren't going to be good. Some of them will be. And obviously, Jaden worked out, and it does look like Bo Nix is working out. But we're not getting everyone that's going to be like, hey, we found our franchise quarterback. And this year, it seems like the exact opposite. Now, obviously Abdul Carter is, that player that I think everybody wants to get a hold of. And especially if you don't have a need at quarterback and you're drafting very high up, got to feel really good about getting him if you are able to. For the Eagles, I kind of took a little different path just because the Eagles are drafting at 32. And I mean, it's hard enough for Raider Jim to kind of give his thoughts when they're drafting at 6. It's impossible for me to give a player or something like that. So positionally, I think you need to be looking at the offensive line. I think the guard position needs to be probably the main. Tyler Steen probably can step into that role, but I think for the Eagles to get a young guard into the system, get him into Jeff Stoutland U, if you will, I think that would be the best case scenario. And we'll see. I would not be surprised to see how we maybe even move down out of that to maybe pick up a little more draft capital either this year or even looking ahead to next year. But the guard play or the guard position, I think, needs to be looked at. And I also do think um, tight end. Now, again, you're going to be needing to kind of get some guys there. Um, if we can get Loveland out of Michigan, if he falls to us, I don't think he will. I'm almost positive Tyler Warren is in this draft. Yeah. They have him going 14th overall. I mean, if Howie can somehow get Tyler Warren into Philadelphia, that would be a coup. But again, very, very difficult to kind of call out a player or anything like that when you're drafting at 32. Yeah, I know it's a weird flex like that. Read the hat. Um, but yeah, it's going to be either those two positions or best player available, I believe. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the draft, Eagles fans just have to have faith in Howie Roseman. And unfortunately, whenever I say that, a lot of people will bring up, um, shoot, I'm trying to think of his name. I thought I was going to be able to think of it off the top of my head. But the kid who we drafted out of TCU, one pick before Justin Jefferson. We were on a different podcast. We were still doing our thing. It was a live thing, and I had to mute myself because I was livid. I said, "Oh my gosh, Justin Jefferson is on the board. We need a wide receiver, biggest home run in all of sports." And we go somewhere else. And again, I want to say Traylon Burks. It's not Traylon Burks for whatever reason. That's the name that's stuck in my head. But that tells you we had a chance to just draft Justin Jefferson. We drafted a guy whose name I can't remember. That tells you how it worked out. But look, every once in a while, Howie is going to swing and miss. But I do think overall, you got to imagine that Howie is going to hit it out of the park. I think this draft will be no different. And it's nice too, because you don't have a ton of holes that you do need to fill immediately. Maybe you're looking down the line at, the left tackle or the right tackle position with Lane Johnson here or there, but nothing needs to be addressed right this minute. And I think that's a really good place for the Eagles to be in. But for me, draft it's kind of like the beginning of the beginning. The NFL is the most oversaturated thing. I mean, we have an entire hour and a half program to the schedule release on ESPN, and the schedules get leaked like 3 days before that anyway. But they still put on this 90-minute production. But you know what? They're going to do numbers for it. So who am I to say? But it is kind of like the beginning of turning the page of last year and starting to look forward to next year. But Raider Jim, any final thoughts for this edition of the NFL Weekly?
Oh yeah, a couple more names for my Raiders on what I'd like to see them do next week. Of course, they need some help on the offensive side. I already talked about Hunter Renfrow, and if he's not doing recycling or he doesn't want to stop doing recycling, Geno's going to need targets. To Tyrell McMillan out of Arizona would be a fantastic wide receiver to pick up. Not flashy, not has just the right amount of skill. Definitely could be NFL caliber, and I think he'd make an impact. 6'4", 220 pounds. That's a nice size wide receiver to have out there as a target. On the defensive side of the ball, if they can't get, and Abdul Carter is just a dream, but that dream is probably going to just dissipate real quick. However, Mason Graham might be their defensive lineman out of Michigan. That's a big boy, and he can play. Matter of fact, Michigan had quite a defensive record last year, and it was due to him. He was definitely one of those anchors. Walter Nolan, defensive lineman out of Ole Miss, another one I would like to see them have on their radar. And if you want to get past the line and look at making the secondary even better and better and better, you're going to have Jeremy Chinn back there anyway. Jahdae Barron, defensive back out of Texas. I would like to see him wearing silver and black as well. I think he would be a good fit for the program.
Yeah, I couldn't let this one go. It just popped into my head, and hopefully Raider Jim won't disconnect. But what are the chances the Raiders take a tight end at 6?
Don't laugh. I saw on like the Raider.com,
Gotta
and
be
it
Tyler
said
Boyd.
that they were looking at some tight end if he's still available late in the draft. And I'm like, why? What is with you people? Just
I sorry. I just you said that in my head. I was like, well, who did they draft last? Oh, and then that's right. Like, yeah. But look, to be fair, look, Brock Bowers looks like
Brock
the
Bowers
real
not that
deal.
crap.
And Michael Mayer, I don't think we can fully, say that he's this or he's that. So, only tongue in cheek there, but yeah, if they go Tyler Warren at 6, I'm Raider Jim might jump through the TV and assault somebody. And you know what? I don't think a jury would convict him. But Raider Jim, you have any other final thoughts?
Final thoughts, and this is away from football, and it's very, very specific to Raider Jim, actually. And as I like to call him, part of my extended family out here in San Diego. But unfortunately, I woke up to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday. And the first email that I got was to let me know that a gentleman, Orned Gabriel was his name, and he was known as Orned Chicken Gabriel. Chicken was a name that his dad had given him when he was a little boy. When I walked into a karate studio many, many, many decades and years ago, put down $35 to take my 5 lessons and see if I wanted to learn martial arts. My instructor, who was one of the lightweight champions in California and in one of the first guys that fought ESPN kickboxing when they used to do that on Tuesday nights or whatever. One of the guys he trained with was this gentleman, Orned Chicken Gabriel, who, when you looked at him, he was all of 5'5", weighed 135, 140 pounds, but he had moves like no other. He was a champion as a fighter, as a competitor. He was instructor and taught many champions, including a gentleman, Steve Nasty Anderson, who was a world champion for many, many years. And Chicken passed away due to, health. He was in his mid 70s, I believe. But that was a big loss to the Martial Arts Society. In overall, Black Belt Magazine was on the internet as soon as it happened. So that is how renowned Mr. Gabriel was. Chicken, thank you for everything and the opportunity I had to work out with you every now and then. And just to be in your presence always made me a better person.
Amen. That was great. Yeah, it's very, very, very tough to deal with things, but sounds like a fantastic life. And look, I've always said if you have a name like Chicken or something like that, you've got to be a pretty cool dude. Like, it just names like that, like you just hear him and you're like, I want to meet that dude. I want to have a beer with that dude, or I want to talk with that dude for 15. He's probably got some stories. So thoughts and prayers going out to everyone affected by that. Mine is it's just kind of a reminder. So a little backstory. I work in construction administration. I don't do actual construction. I sit in a very air conditioned office in a nice comfy chair, sitting behind a couple monitors. But I do a lot of satellite imagery, looking at job sites or lots and just figuring out single family residence, commercial lots, things like that. Blah 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 blah. And over the past few weeks, it's really been in the forefront of my mind, when I run probably 150, 200 addresses a day, it's very monotonous and it's very tedious and it's just a lot of cutting and pasting. But over the past few weeks, a lot of the jobs that I've been looking at, unfortunately, have been in the Pacific Palisades area. And looking at the satellite imagery I'm a World War II. I want to say buff, but I enjoy World War II history and documentaries and things like that. It looks very reminiscent of whether you want to, firebombing of Dresden, the Battle of Britain, the Blitz in Central Europe, wherever. Imagine a bombed out city. Unfortunately, these are the images that a lot of people are still dealing with, and it's very very sad, and it's because when I run these things, I see the names, who owns it, or the trust, or and every single one has a story behind it. And a lot of times, unfortunately, when we do hear about Pacific Palisades or Los Angeles or Malibu, oh well, they're rich and they'll be fine. And they're probably you're probably not too far off. They probably do have the means to rebuild and things like that. But I think it's more about what they lost. And whether it's memories, whether it's family heirlooms, whether it's property and things like that. The reason I just wanted to kind of bring it up is because it kind of disappears, right? Once the fires go out and we stop talking about it on, TV and during sporting events and things like that. And I also, don't want to just point out to that. There have unfortunately been natural disasters. I'm also thinking about North Carolina as well. But just want to be a little reminder to be grateful for all that you have. Be grateful for the fact that, look, if you're watching this podcast and you have the time and the technology and the money to be listening to us wax poetically about something as ridiculous as the NFL draft and free agency, you live a pretty good life. And even for myself, I try to remind myself, even on my worst days, there are a lot of people in this world that would kill to be in my position. And just a little reminder to be thankful for what you have, even if you don't feel it's enough. It's a lot. Again, if you have the time, energy, and resources to watch us weekly, you have a pretty good life. And I'm speaking to myself more than anyone else right now as well. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm still on my soapbox, but just a little reminder, a little food for thought as we head into Easter weekend and the summer for the whole, to just enjoy it and be grateful for all that you have. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly here on the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Peace.